Zach Ertz finally broke out. It happened. My God, it happened. He was supposed to break out 3 years ago. He was supposed to break out 2 years ago. But he finally broke out. 74 catches, 824 yards, 8 touchdowns last year, making plays as an outside receiver, a slot receiver, traditional inline tight end. Too big for cornerbacks, too athletic for linebackers, especially along the seam. Ertz was Carson Wentz's favorite target in the red zone due to that large catch radius of his athleticism, able to leap and high point the ball. He uses his frame to box out defenders. So 8 scores last year, Carson Wentz to Zach Ertz. And Ertzy, come on, baby, make it hurt so good. And Ertzy, Zach Ertz, is now a top 3 tight end in the game. How about that? I'm not putting him any higher, though, because he still can't block. So he will never be Rob Gronkowski or Travis Kelce to me. But last year's campaign, what he did, he's a top 3 tight end. And speaking of blocking, who's going to fill Brent Selleck's role? I'm still trying to figure this out because Doug Peterson clearly has a plan. Because you got guys on your team, tight ends on your team who really can't block. Dallas Goedert. The blocking will come with time. I don't think he has it right now. I think he has, obviously the frame and the physicality to be a capable blocker. He just needs some work with tight ends coach Justin Peele. And then there's Richard Rodgers, who the Eagles are saying is going to take over Brent Selleck's role. I don't know about that. I don't know what they're seeing that I haven't seen. Maybe they're just really confident in their coaching staff that they can take somebody like Richard Rodgers, who really has never been a great blocker before, and can turn him into a capable blocker. And even when you look behind him, it's Billy Brown. Billy Brown was a former wide receiver in college at Shepherd. And he's got all the records from Shepherd. Receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and catches. I think he has all of them. So you got 4 tight ends, and none of them can really block. So how are you going to fill that void? I'm curious if Doug is going to use a lot more of those 13 personnel packages. It's a look that the Eagles liked to use a lot last year in short yardage situations. So you use a pair of tight ends, and the other tight end is basically disguised as an offensive lineman. So you'll see Isaac Seumalo or whoever as that extra lineman on the edge blocking. So I wonder if they're going to do a little bit more of this. Instead of that traditional inline blocking tight end, maybe they just go to that 13 personnel package a little bit more. I'm curious. I mean, unless they think Goddard is going to come along a lot more quickly as a blocker than I think. I think he's a guy that, again, he's got the physicality. I mean, he's huge. He overwhelmed defenders with his physicality at South Dakota State, but this isn't the FCS anymore. There were things wrong with his technique. It needs refinement. When he had to move and block targets in space, balance was off. He lunged too much. He was too high, stood up too high. And this happened along the edges, too. While he did overwhelm people at times, he still was, too high, and he'd get beaten on the edge. But you can't deny what he can do as a pass catcher. And I'm really looking forward to these 12 personnel packages. You look at a guy like Trey Burton, and as great as Trey Burton was last year, he only saw the field 27% of the time last year. And now you got Goddard in here, and he's basically like a Zach Ertz clone. Huge frame. There's a lot of athleticism. He's going to win in the red zone. He's going to box you out. And his other trait is his run after the catch ability, where he just uses his physicality to bull over defenders. It's kind of like Travis Kelce a little bit. So in my personal opinion, I think over time, Dallas Goedert is actually going to be a better tight end than Zach Ertz. I love his physical characteristics and what he can do and what he could potentially do in the red zone with Carson Wentz. Wow. I love that draft pick, Dallas Goedert. So Peterson was asked about, 13, or not 13 personnel, but 12 personnel in OTAs. And here's what he said about it. So he goes, we did spend a lot of time in 3 tight end sets with Trey last year, too. And obviously we put Isaac in those situations. Big V has been in those situations, along with Selleck and Ertz last year. I do think that as Goddard grows and matures and gets better and stronger and all that, yeah, I like playing with tight ends. I think they can create some mismatches, or create matchups, I should say. And what kind of matchups, or what kind of matchup problems are those Eagles tight ends going to pose? Well, Peterson answered that question as well, and he said, they're so athletic and so gifted and talented, they almost play like receivers sometimes, just bigger receivers in the slot, detached away from the ball, and it gives offenses some good, favorable matchups. So if you got a guy like Dallas Goedert, he lives up to his potential, the Eagles are going to have the best tight end duo since Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. It's a fact. So there's that. Now, back to Rodgers and Billy Brown. I think the third tight end, it's either going to be one of these two guys. Joshua Perkins, Adam Zaruba, the former rugby player. I think those guys are long shots to make the 53, but they could crack the practice squad. But back to Brown and back to Rodgers. When they initially signed Richard Rodgers, I didn't really like the move. I wasn't crazy about the move. And then they draft Dallas Goedert, which made me even a little bit more confused about the move because he can't block. But you got a guy like Billy Brown, well, he's not going to be able to block either. So I am really curious to see what they do with these tight ends and how they're going to block, because I've been assuming this entire offseason that Brent Selleck was going to come back. And he didn't. So I made an ass out of myself because I assumed. So we'll see. We'll see what happens during training camp and these preseason games. Maybe Doug will give us a little something. I'm sure he's probably going to save a lot of what he's going to want to do for the regular season, but I am curious to see if Goddard, for example, takes some strides forward with his blocking, because, again, I think there's potential there. I just think you have to wait a little bit until you tap into that potential. So those are my thoughts on the tight ends for this training camp preview. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know below in the comments section who is going to make the team out of the Eagles tight ends. So with that being said, I am Adrian Fetke. I'm out of here. Take care.